Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special edition of Newsflash. President Donald Trump is speaking now about the situation in Syria. Let's listen.
Gruesome suffering, but because even small amounts can unleash widespread devastation. The purpose of our actions tonight is to establish a strong deterrent against the production, spread, and use of chemical weapons. Establishing this deterrent is a vital national security interest of the United States. The combined American, British, and French response to these atrocities will integrate all instruments of our national power, military, economic, and diplomatic. We are prepared to sustain this response until the Syrian regime stops its use of prohibited chemical agents. I also have a message tonight for the two governments most responsible for supporting, equipping, and financing the criminal Assad regime. To Iran and to Russia, I ask, what kind of a nation wants to be associated with the mass murder of innocent men, women, and children? The nations of the world can be judged by the friends they keep. No nation can succeed in the long run by promoting rogue states, brutal tyrants, and murderous dictators. In 2013, President Putin and his government promised the world that they would guarantee the elimination of Syria's chemical weapons. Assad's recent attack and today's response are the direct result of Russia's failure to keep that promise. Russia must decide if it will continue down this dark path or if it will join with civilized nations as a force for stability and peace. Hopefully, someday we'll get along with Russia and maybe even Iran, but maybe not. I will say this. The United States has a lot to offer.
All right, so that is Donald Trump speaking, giving a strong message to Russia and Iran, the two main governments supporting Syria today in the Assad regime, after he has, in fact, ordered strikes officially on Syria. He said, quote, "I ordered the United States Armed Forces to launch a precision strike on targets associated with the chemical weapon capabilities of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. The strikes were in coordination with France and the United Kingdom." That is official. Now we go back to his speech.
In Syria and Iraq has been liberated and eliminated. The United States has also rebuilt our friendships across the Middle East. We have asked our partners to take greater responsibility for securing their home region, including contributing large amounts of money for the resources, equipment, and all of the anti-ISIS effort. Increased engagement from our friends, including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Egypt, and others, can ensure that Iran does not profit from the eradication of ISIS. America does not seek an indefinite presence in Syria under no circumstances. As other nations step up their contributions, we look forward to the day when we can bring our warriors home, and great warriors they are. Looking around our very troubled world, Americans have no illusions. We cannot purge the world of evil or act everywhere there is tyranny. No amount of American blood or treasure can produce lasting peace and security in the Middle East. It's a troubled place. We will try to make it better, but it is a troubled place. The United States will be a partner and a friend, but the fate of the region lies in the hands of its own people. In the last century, we looked straight into the darkest places of the human soul. We saw the anguish that can be unleashed and the evil that can take hold. By the end of World War I, more than 1 million people had been killed or injured by chemical weapons. We never want to see that ghastly specter return. So today, the nations of Britain, France, and the United States of America have marshaled their righteous power against barbarism and brutality. Tonight I ask all Americans to say a prayer for our noble warriors and our allies as they carry out their missions. We pray that God will bring comfort to those suffering in Syria. We pray that God will guide the whole region toward a future of dignity and of peace. And we pray that God will continue to watch over and bless the United States of America. Thank you and good night. Thank you.
All right, so there is President Donald Trump ordering his second strike on Syria. We went through this precisely a year ago today. There's going to be so many important factors to deal with from here, but first we will break down the three most important things he said in his speech today. So, we're going to handle that for you. So stay right with us. Stay right where you are. You are not going to want to go anywhere. We are not going to go anywhere. So you do not need to worry about that. All right, so this is what we're dealing with. United States, President Trump is addressing the nation as military action is underway. As we know, a chemical attack took place last Saturday in Douma, Syria. The World Health Organization says about 500 people may have been affected. So here's how he started the speech. He ordered strikes on specifically precision strikes in coordination with France and the United Kingdom on the Assad forces in Syria, specifically towards the chemical weapons facilities. Those are targeted, even though Assad gave up a good portion, at least, of his chemical weapons to John Kerry and the Obama administration. Those are still being attacked tonight. Strikes will continue until Syria's regime of chemical weapons ends. Apparently, a regime's use of chemical weapons ends. President Trump said Friday the purpose of a campaign of airstrikes in Syria is to establish a strong deterrent against the production, spread, and use of chemical weapons. The combined British, American, and French response to these atrocities will integrate all instruments of our national power, military, economic, and diplomatic. Trump indicated strikes would continue until Syrian regime ends its use of chemical weapons. We are prepared to sustain this response until the regime stops its use of prohibited chemical agents. So, he was also got pretty tough on Assad as well, which is good. He called Assad, quote, he said it was the crimes of a monster. That is what that's what he called Assad's crimes today. He said the despicable attack and the massacre was a significant escalation in a pattern of chemical weapons use by that terrible regime. The evil and despicable attack left mothers and fathers, infants and children in thrashing in pain and gasping for air. These are not actions of a man. They are crimes of a monster, and said very well written speech by whoever wrote that. It actually sounds like a sophisticated person wrote that. So anyway, that's the latest as what we know now in the Syrian attack thus far. So we're going to keep you posted on that, of course. And we will look at now as the vice president has left his summit in Peru, and the samples from the Syrian attack site test positive for chlorine and the nerve agent, an official has said. So we now know it's that, but can we confirm it is Assad? That's the thing that still does require looking into. Nevertheless, President Trump has struck these chemical weapons facilities, and it does seem a little bit strange why Assad would want to do this in the first place. I'm not trying to stoke any kind of conspiracy theories here, but it is odd. It definitely is a really odd tactical move for Bashar al-Assad here, who is striking the U.S. just as they are about to leave Syria and leave Assad and pull out all their resources, which Trump encouragingly said, although actions are louder than the words, and he hasn't shown any signs of any kind of military de-escalation in really the entire course of administration that I can think of. it's always been the Pentagon neoconservatives coming in the last moment and pushing him to more war on this. But it looks like at this time, we are seeing a very strong push by President Trump, both against this, and he also did indicate encouragingly. But again, as we say, we don't know until anything really happens with President Trump. You don't know what's in his head. He could change it, really, frankly, at any moment. And that's the interesting thing that's worth watching here. What it will be his actions going forward. Will we see a troop withdrawal in Syria? Well, you get the sense Trump actually does want to do, and that's something I would totally support him in doing, because I think it's something that we should just not be involved in anymore. And I think the media is going to tell you that time and time and again, we need some action here. And if you're not like that, they're going to beat the drums of war. They're going to be like, if you don't want to move in on this, you're a friend to Russia, something like that. So yeah, that's just the crazy situation we are seeing right now. So we'll give you the details more of this chemical weapons attack. So President Trump said on Friday he had ordered strikes on Syrian targets. New York Times reporting. Trump said Britain and France had joined in the United States in the strikes. The strikes risked pulling the United States deeper into the complex, multi-sided war in Syria, from which Trump only last week said he wanted to withdraw. So they also raised the possibility of confrontation with Russia and Iran. Both had military forces in Syria to support Bashar al-Assad. In choosing to strike, it appeared that Trump's desire to punish Assad for what he called a barbaric attack and make good on his tweets promising action this week outweighed his desire to limit the United States' military involvement in this conflict, at least in the short term. Although, as I said before, in those brief remarks, he did give some sort of indication that he was somewhat focused on possibly pulling out of this whole Syrian exchange here, this whole Syrian war here, and let these people who actually live there maybe figure it out. So that would be something encouraging. But let's be real. It's Trump's desire to punish Assad wasn't just Trump's. It was everyone's in Washington. There has been wall-to-wall coverage this week. It feels like it's a cycle, because if I look back at precisely... I'm going right now. I'm doing it. I'm going to look back like right now at the archives of our show. Go to shows on Spreaker.com, go to Newsflash, we go all the way down, we go tracking way back, and it's almost like a cycle, because this same exact thing happened, although the strikes before were much more limited, that, like, we're still seeing, the point is we're still seeing this kind of same thing. If we look back here, I'm in September now, I'm in July, and we go all the way back to almost precisely that day. We have that. So newsflash, it's April 6th. So almost like, 7 days later, a year ago, 7 days before a year, like 7 days off from a year, this strike took place. The same, almost very similar, if not precisely the same situation took place again. So, yeah, it was a lot of people. It was steady drums of war throughout the weekend. The Washington media, and the only voices of dissent were Tucker Carlson and Tommy Lahren. Like, whoa. When they are people who are actually talking sense, that just shows you what a crazy situation and the situation that Washington is in at the moment. The strikes mark the second time Trump has attacked Syria to punish the government. It's accused of a chemical weapon. So, yes, this was the first one that was with France and Britain. This fusillade of missiles against Assad's government, presenting an allied condemnation of April 7th suspected attack taking place in Duma. Germany refused to take part in the coordinated military action in Syria, even though Chancellor Angela Merkel called the use of chemical weapons unacceptable. That, to me, would be the correct course of action. Also, take your troops out of Syria. Yeah, a fact-finding mission for the Organization of Prohibition of Chemical Weapons was to begin investigating the incident on Saturday in Duma, which had been held by the rebels before the suspected attack. The omissions job is only to determine whether chemical weapons had been used, not who used them, which is going to be something important to realize, because if we did the strike, and it would be important to determine then